Pete Smith from the Institute for Quantum Consciousness, and this whole event is about helping people to remember things about themselves that they didn't know before. It's about us understanding that we have a deep spiritual aspect to us that is ready to be explored. This is an incredible event where people can, connect with mediums, connect with people who work with consciousness and learn more about who they really are. I think we're conditioned by society to forget who we are. And I think events like this are absolutely critical for human consciousness as we start to remember the parts of us that have been long forgotten. I mean, modern life distracts us from everything. It's all about the mortgage and the kids and the job and, the busy lifestyle that we have. And so often we stop to pause and we stop and need to remember. Let me say that again. It's better if we stop and pause and remember more of who we are beyond the distractions of modern life. Time in nature, time for yourself, meditation, all of that is critical. Most people are out of balance. They spend all of their time chasing the things in life that they're told to chase, and we don't take time for ourselves. And what I'd say to any busy parent as well, the more you can stop and settle your energy, you can offer so much more to the people that you love.
So please welcome to the stage, all the way from North Queensland now, is Peter Smith. Please go. Come on, thank you. Hey, well done.
Thanks, mate.
Pete. Now, Pete is I call him Pete because we're good mates. Pete is a regular on my radio program, Radio Out There podcast, and we talk about all sorts of things. And Pete, quantum consciousness. Just the other day, our last week program, we talked about consciousness. Now, what's the difference between consciousness and quantum consciousness?
Thanks, Barry. I see it as the interplay between two things. And quantum physics is the science of possibility. Mm-hmm. It's limitless, it's multidimensional. So when you put the science of possibility with consciousness, which is the fabric of reality, you give it a boost. So the two of them coming together gives us unlimited science in an ocean of consciousness.
Fair enough. Now, you have done so much in the past because you were the outgoing president of the Michael Newton Institute. Does everybody know Michael Newton? The works, Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls? Fantastic. That's how Pete and I met through that. Now, Pete, you moved on from life between lives and past lives. Was that a lead-in to quantum consciousness?
I guess it was a platform, Barry, to sort of continue the expansion. And Michael Newton is a great mate of mine. He was a fan of quantum physics.
Oh, was he? I didn't know that.
And when I spoke to him about that, of where I was heading, he referred me back to some of his books. And he said, this is where I've mentioned quantum physics and reality and all of that in there.
Right.
So had he stayed longer, he probably would have gone in that direction anyway, I think.
Well, he had a very good lifetime though, didn't he?
He did indeed.
Yeah, and I was honoured to be able to do the tribute program to Michael Newton on Radio Out There. So that was fantastic. So it's a wonderful move, shall we say, from Life Between Lives, Michael Newton, and now quantum consciousness. So very briefly, what can people get out of today from your presentation?
Very simply, I want to help people remember who they really are. And I think that's the gift of a lot of the work that we do, is that everything we've been told about ourselves is wrong. And we're so much more than we know.
Well, we are. You helped me so much in my book, Past Lives Unveiled, which is out there. Pete did some regression for me and also wrote the intro. So you've helped me discover who I am. So I hope you can help people here today. So please welcome Peter Smith.
Thanks, Barry. My role today is, as I said, is to help you to remember who you are. I've got some busy slides with lots of data, but I want you to feel the intention that I'm holding for you right now. That intention is for you to understand, remember, and perhaps even touch your magnificence. The world is changing. We need people to be able to step into who they really are, to find their authenticity, to find purpose in this lifetime. And if we all do that, we can change the world. On the screen, you'll see a book, Michael Newton's first book. That's a book that changed my life. Over 20 years ago, I was looking for a present for my hypnotherapy teacher, as I'd just graduated from hypnotherapy school. And I went into a bookshop, old Borders bookshop. Do you remember that? I think they've reincarnated as Amazon now. But I went into Borders bookshop and got a coffee and I stood in front of a bookshelf and I said, take me to the book I need today. I forgot to say for him, for my teacher. I pulled Journey of Souls off the shelf and I read the back cover and something inside me shifted. It was like an opening. It was one of those, metaphysical experiences, if you like. We've all had them. A little piece of me awoke, something that I was meant to do and something I was meant to find. So I had to buy 2 books. So Michael Newton's book is about where we go between the incarnations. We heard from Tony just before about the reincarnation cycle and how we look at that in a linear fashion. But when we go in between, we have the sweeping view across the lineage of our soul. Michael Newton was the first that mapped that place in between, and he brought order and structure to it. That was in the 70s and 80s mainly, and things have changed since. And I want to share that with you, where his work has been evolving too. But with that book, I read the second one, I read the third one. I ended up in America learning his work. Then he was forming an organisation. I helped him to found the Michael Newton Institute. He became my mentor, my friend, and probably the person that's had the biggest impact in my life in its entirety. I served as the president for 10 years until the organisation got too big. That position was retired, as Barry said, and it was split into 4 different directorships, and I'm still there in that advisory council now. My role is to evolve Michael's work, honouring where we've been before, but to take it into new territory. And that's exciting, and I have some information to share with you on that as well. Apart from the Michael Newton Institute, where I'm going to draw some of our resources for research to share with you, the Institute for Quantum Consciousness is an organisation that I founded in 2013. A few of our people are sprinkled through the audience as well. Our role is to map the interplay between science and spirituality by using the quantum field. Okay? Quantum physics is the glue, and consciousness is the landscape that pulls the physical and the metaphysical worlds together. Okay? I'm going to share a lot of information with you. There'll be questions at the end. I'll share with you where our research has taken us and also the work that we're doing. But I would love for you to listen with your inner ears. Watch the slides with your inner eyes. Because you are a disguise for a greater consciousness. We plan these incarnations before we come. And you incarnate as a person, and you chose this body that you're in. Sorry, no refunds. But you chose this body that you're in ahead of 8 billion other options available on this planet. I mean, how significant is that for you? This was the only body that would do. That's significant, and this is one of the outcomes of Michael's work. But what we've discovered in the work we're doing at the Institute for Quantum Consciousness is even this vehicle that you have chosen is multidimensional. It's a gateway to your greatness, to the greater consciousness of who you really are. This thing's a portal to so much more. And by understanding that, it changes everything that you have in your life. Okay. Back to Michael Newton. Let's start there. So Michael, he passed in 2016. It was a very sad day for us at the Institute, but we knew that he was always going to pass the baton to us at one point. He mapped 7,000 cases over 35 years. And it started with 2 clients that showed him the way. The first was when he had a client come in with a psychosomatic pain in his shoulder, couldn't understand why it was there, and he said, go to the source of your pain. This is a traditional psychologist in Hollywood, California. So he took that client back to the source of his pain and he described being bayoneted in a trench in World War I on the Somme. And Michael, being the researcher that he is, he said, who's your commanding officer? What are the badges on your uniform? Where are your people stationed? And he collected this data, which was what made him such a great researcher. He'd already done his PhD, etc. So he actually wrote, as you did in those days, this is 1968, he wrote to the British War Office in London and he confirmed all the details he got out of that regression. That took him away from being a traditional therapist into that type of environment that involved past lives. And the fellow's shoulder healed by revivicating what was happening, and by understanding that that was what was behind the pain, it released. Similar to what Tony was talking about in the last talk. Then he had a second client. A lady came in and she was depressed. I'm depressed, I don't know why I'm depressed, but I'm depressed and it's terrible, etc., etc. And he said, go to the source of your pain. So she shot into a strange in-between type place where she was there with the rest of a group of souls that she incarnates with regularly. And she said, I've found my friends. And she cried. I found my friends. I came into this life because I was too dependent upon them and I wanted to incarnate without them, but I have missed them so much. She came out of the session and her depression had vanished because she knew her friends were waiting for her on the other side. And she knew she had a role in achieving independence. This was all out of books, out of videos and all that. For me, I had my own experience of a client. And that's what really propelled me into this work. My teacher, who I bought the book for, he rang me up and he said, you know, I never really got into that book. I've got this lady and she's coming for stress because she's going to court next week, family court. And she's stressed and she went to this place with these gold pillars. I don't know where she went, but it sounds a bit like that book I never sort of read. Can you take her on? And when your teacher refers a client to you, it's always quite an honour. So I took her on and she came, we did a session, we went back to the gold pillars, tell me about the gold pillars. She told me her soul name was Algae. And that she had been trying to break this pattern for 5 lifetimes. And every one of them, this other soul, and this was part of a soul contract based in love, he kept coming back and giving her a hard time so she would learn the lesson and stand up to him. I said to Algae, because I didn't know where she was, I said to Algae, what do you need to do? She says, now I remember. I can break the pattern. The next week she went into court against her husband. She had 3 little girls. The judge awarded her, she looked him in the eye across the courtroom for the first time in 5 lifetimes, and she broke that spell. And the judge gave her the house, gave her the car, I think she got the family dog, and she moved forward in her life in the most beautiful way. When it came time for her 50th birthday, she asked me to come because she wanted the 10 most influential people in her life to be at the table with each other. I declined because it wasn't about me, it was about the work. And it was about her courage to do that. But that was quite an honour to have that invitation. So for me, the work became real. And that's when I ended up in America. That's when I ended up meeting Michael, working with him and alongside him for all those years. And that took me away from a previous existence I'd had in corporate life. Okay? I made the escape, same as Josie talked about with her this morning. You do the corporate thing and something calls you in a new direction. And that's where you go. So Michael's work, these common experiences that he mapped, and you're going to hear about near-death experiences and all of that, the tunnel, everyone goes to the same place, the feelings of euphoria. We see the same thing in life between lives. Feelings of elation and connection to all there is. Because we're no longer restricted by this human form. Guide contact, wise beings who guide us from lifetime to lifetime. The body selection that I mentioned before. You chose this body ahead of 8 billion others that are available to you. And I really believe that that is the greatest act of unconditional love that you will ever experience. It's nice to think you're 1 in a million, but you're not. You're 1 in 8 billion. That's how much your soul loves you. Because it chose to blend with you into this one spiritual being here having the human experience. And that's who you really are. I'll get to the multidimensional parts a bit later. What we see in these sessions as well is an extensive use of metaphor. Michael found that there was like gardens and there was temples and people were wearing robes. And for me, that's about the integration of spiritual experiences into human form, because they use metaphor and analogy to make sure we get the message, because it bypasses the conscious factor filter of the human intellect. That's why you see these things. This is why guides take certain form when they want to talk to you. So when this work happens, we start with a client. We move back through time. They become a small child. We normally go back pre-birth to when they enter the body. We get a sense of when they entered the womb, usually about third or fourth month. Then they go to a past life persona, and then they change character again into the second character, and then they move into their immortal essence at the end of that past life, where they cross over into spirit. And that's when we have some great conversations about why they came into this life, what their purpose is for this lifetime, who do they reincarnate on a regular basis with. Okay? Makes a big difference. Michael's next two books are on the screen there as well. Journey of Souls, Destiny of Souls, and Life Between Lives was, if you like, a handbook for Life Between Lives therapists that were coming through. I couldn't put them down. I read them all in a month. But his work was fantastic, but we had to found the Institute to continue it. So the Michael Newton Institute was founded originally in 2002, but refreshed in 2005, when we wanted to use his name as the organisation. Typical of the humility of that man, he was very uncomfortable with us using his name. He says, "Oh, it's not about me, it's about the work." But we said, "But this is you. You started it. You're the founder. We have to use your name." We actually overruled him, and he fell into line. So we've now got over 200 people around the world. We're in 40 countries. That work is done in 20 different languages. Okay, this is a global phenomenon that translates into different countries, different cultures, and different languages. We're a registered not-for-profit in the USA. We have around 50 volunteers who run our organisations, all set in different types of time zones. And the M&I Beyond program, that's the role that I play, is to lead that wave of change for our organisation. We go beyond where Michael took us, because at the end of that third book, that white one there on the right, he expected us to take the work far beyond what he had done. A lot of his cases were in the 70s and 80s, and I can't begin to tell you how far consciousness has shifted since then. It's shifted since we started this event this morning. So there's a lot more to come. And we have ongoing research that we're doing, which I'll share in a moment too. So as an organisation, we wrote 3 books. Memories of the Afterlife from 2009. Wisdom of Souls was one that we wrote to honour Michael. He had actually been the editor and the footnoter of the first one, Memories of the Afterlife. Wisdom of Souls was our first book without him. We did that to honour his memory in 2018. And then we felt the restrictions of a big publishing model. Some of you may know what I'm talking about, but when you self-publish, and there are so many different ways to publish books now, we decided to go our own way, and just last year we founded M&I Publishing, which is our own publishing company. Okay, and we publish our books. The first one, Finding Purpose, was published late last year. So the books continue, and we've taken Michael's work forward that way. There's another consciousness series coming from next year. Michael's work was instrumental in changing those 7,000 lives. We've done 75,000 cases since across our network. But it's shifting. Consciousness is shifting, and we're seeing his model where you would go to a soul group and you'd go to a selection of your next body, where you'd look at the inter-life activities that were there. It's all starting to change because consciousness is speeding up. We're seeing 3 trends. We're seeing clients come in that no longer need that structure. They shoot straight off into spirit because we hold the energy for them. Once you've been working in this for a while, you carry a certain vibration. Josie talked about frequency and vibration. She talked about Tesla's quote this morning. This is about us holding a space that allows a soul to emerge in the loving resonance of who they really are and transcend the human, move into that soul persona in a way that allows the human person and the soul to know each other and become one consciously. So we're seeing that structure is no longer required. The other thing we're seeing is cosmic connections. I'm going to talk more about this in this presentation. But cosmic connections, we are having a lot of people who are incarnating onto this planet in these times specifically to be here for the change of consciousness. This is one planet. It's like a grain of sand on a beach that never ends. How many places are there to incarnate into? In the first 800 Life Between Lives sessions that I did, I asked one particular research question. Have you ever incarnated in another body or another dimension? 798 people of the 800 said yes. And then I would say, ask to be shown. And they would go there. Those last two, I feel, weren't ready to see what they needed to see. Okay? It would have perhaps derailed the whole session for them. Put it in the, oh, did I make that up bucket? Which is what happens. So the cosmic connections are getting a lot stronger. We are getting very close to disclosure of our place in the universe, our cosmic heritage, the fact that there are other planets out there that are inhabited. Even NASA have confirmed that there's, thousands of planets that are much similar to ours across different galaxies. So we're not alone. We never have been. But the big shift we're seeing in these sessions as well is people would come in, when I first started this work 20 odd years ago, people would come in and they'd say, I want to know my purpose. Okay, your purpose is to spread love, to teach, to help raise the vibration of your family, whatever it might be. It was very personalised as a purpose for this lifetime. The trend we're seeing now is, I'm here to be part of something. I'm here to be part of a shift. I chose to be here and I'm excited to be here. And I have things to do. Now, if everybody comes here to be part of a change in consciousness, what's going to happen? Consciousness is going to shift. So that's our role. Events like this, a couple hundred years ago, you'd hold a gig like this and they'd burn us all at the stake. But now, we build energy and we contribute to that evolution of consciousness. This is a very interesting piece of paper. This Dr. Serena Villari, this is the first PhD done within the field of Life Between Lives work. The psychological impact of spiritual transcendence. A study of afterlife consciousness. We worked hand in hand with Serena to pull this together. She worked with a lot of our people. She's a registered psychologist. She's come through Stanford. She's now at Harvard Medical School. She did this PhD as part of her doctorate at the Wright Institute in Berkeley, San Francisco. This is a very, she looks young in that photo, but this is a very powerful researcher. She put together these psychological parameters and she measured people before they had a Life Between Lives experience and after they had a Life Between Lives experience. And these are, excuse the strange letters there, I wanted to quote them right. It's part of the Cohen-D system, which I really don't know much about, but I took it as a reference from her paper. She found in all cases tendency towards depression went down. Tendency towards anxiety, down. Resilience, up. Fear of death, down. Right? Tony talked a bit about fear of death, how that is resolved. When you know that you reincarnate, it does something to dispel the fear of death. When you actually visit the afterlife and you look at the sweeping view across the lineage of your soul, that consolidates even further. Spirituality, sense of spirituality, up. Sense of the presence of meaning in life, up. Search for meaning in life, up. This is a phenomenal piece of work. And her doctorate was steered by a guy called Matt McKay, Dr. Matt McKay, who's written about 30 self-help books. He's also the founder of New Harbinger Press. The other PhD that oversaw it was the executive director of the Michael Newton Institute, Dr. Diana Paik. So this is one of the best pieces of research work I've seen on this subject. We now have our first PhD confirming Michael Newton's work. Okay, we do research at Michael Newton Institute. We have a research team. And when I'm going to share with you our most recent research, but when we went, when the thing happened in 2019 that came to be known as COVID, and we had all the government restrictions and there was a whole lot of weird energy around for a while, we went to Spirit and we asked the greater purpose behind it. Because when you've got people who can access the afterlife, we take them out of their bodies, we take them into the spiritual realm, and we ask them what's really going on from the fabric of their soul as they observe this planet. In that earlier research, we were told that humanity had to make a choice. Everything was being swept off the table, and we could have the choice of what we put back on. And it came down at the individual and collective levels of one choice. Do we choose fear or do we choose love? Not love and hate, not courage and fear, but love and fear. Because where there is love, there can be no fear. Because it's a fundamentally different vibration. If you know anything about David Hawkins' work with the map of consciousness, you see where fear is, you see where love is. Fear can't exist in an ocean of love. So that's the choice. And I think many made that choice, and I think that's helped humanity move to a different place. This particular piece of research, I'm just going to share a snippet from it, but we took 37 people went into the afterlife, 37 of our own people who were used to that fabric of reality, 14 different countries, 4 continents. Okay, so this is a global sample. This was the questions we were asking. Describe the current consciousness of humanity. How can souls best help humanity in these times? What is the best way for people to contribute to humanity? How can people easily access their soul's wisdom? What type of souls are incarnating on Earth now? What advice can we offer people who are struggling with these changes? It's a really big piece of research. It's going to be published. I'm going to share answers to one of the questions. What is the potential for humanity yet to be discovered? This research is about you. You are humanity. And if you individually weren't here, something would be missing from the collective consciousness. That's how important you are to the overall vibration of humanity. So when somebody is in this beautiful spiritual realm, in touch with their superconscious mind, connected to the all there is, we ask them that last question: what is the potential for humanity yet to be discovered? Here's what they told us. There are infinite possibilities. We have the potential to be limitless. Our bodies can become lighter and less dense. And if you look at the food systems that we partake in, you can understand where that might be coming from. We can have increased heightened awareness and spirituality in tune with oneness. So there's something about us no longer being distracted by our phones, as Josie mentioned this morning. We get past all of those distractions and we move within ourselves to find out who we really are, and that heightens our awareness. We become more in tune with our surroundings. We're getting closer to oneness. They use the term unity consciousness. Unity consciousness, that's a beautiful phrase. That's all about oneness. And we have the power to co-create with the universe, and some of this starts to move into quantum physics, how we manifest our own realities, and I'll get to that part soon. And our ability to experience peace, harmony, deep joy and pure love. It's within our grasp. And remember, these answers are coming from people that are not conditioned by society. They're in a very different vibration. They're in a place of spirit, speaking from the voice of their soul. And they see humanity very differently. And then we can be truly free. It was Carl Jung who said we can never truly find out who we are until we drop 2 types of conditioning: our societal conditioning and our familial conditioning. Only then are we free. Because there's nothing steering us back towards the limited view that we have of humanity. We've been told we're cogs in a machine, that we should do this or we should do that. None of that's true. We are limitless even in human form. We come here to experience things like grief and fear and love and all of the human emotions. We come here to experience those. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't. But if we see those as experiences, as not as something that rules our life, we become free. What is this trying to teach me? We all do it. I mean, we're not immune. Those of us who've been in this work for a long time. We struggle with the gambit of human emotions too, because we came here to experience that. But this is who we really are. Let me keep going. Science and technology will evolve. Okay, it's about to get a big boost. particularly if we move to a place where we do disclosure and we understand other races in the universe that are dying to help us with some of this. You can make your own minds up about AI and what that offers humanity. It can be a great tool, but I'm not sure we need to keep it as a servant, not a master, perhaps. But then I guess I did grow up with the Terminator movies. So, anyway. SOS Sarah Connor. Okay, huge advancement in the medical field. Somebody asked me out there before, do I know much about med beds? That sort of stuff. I don't, but I've heard of them. There are new healing techniques that are around vibration, that are around sound, that are around frequency, that are going to shift this place like nothing else. We're going to do that stuff instead of pharmaceuticals. And I'm looking forward to that. Communication through telepathy. You do this now. Sometimes you know what somebody's thinking. You think about a person and they ring you up or send you a text message. You bump into somebody on the street. You know, I was talking to some people earlier and they asked after my partner who's unwell and couldn't come down from Cairns. But as soon as we started talking about it, she texted me. I mean, we do this stuff. Okay? No languages. You know, if you look at a number of languages we have on this planet, I talked about how we do sessions in 20 different languages for Life Between Lives work. Can you imagine how many languages there are in the universe? How do you get around that when you're an advanced race? You don't have language. It's easy. And you don't need a Babel fish either stuck in your ear like Douglas Adams' book, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But if we transcend the need for language and we communicate vibrationally, I mean, you know what it's like to communicate through feeling? You hold the hand of someone you love. You don't need to say anything. You hug one of your kids or a niece or a nephew, whatever it might be. You don't need to say anything. You feel it. So we don't need language all the time already. Mental communication, a knowing when you tune into a fabric that is more than what we have here in the physical realm, because we are a doorway to the metaphysical. If we can tune into that, if we can find a knowing, oh, I just knew that. I just knew that was going to happen. I've had clients say to me over the years, I always knew my mum was going to pass early. Or I always knew that, you know, that was the right thing for me. Or I felt like I was called in that direction. That's what we're talking about. That's following the vibrational frequencies of our life. Teleportation, you may or may not know that they did experiments with the US government on this many years ago. There's some great stuff on that if you want to Google. But yeah, if we're multidimensional and we can be in many places at once through non-locality, why can't we choose the place we go to? It's all possible if we get other things out of the way first. And there was a really interesting series of comments about we're reconnecting to the powers we once had. That's interesting. We used to be able to do some of this stuff in ancient times. And there's all sorts of talk about portals and, you know, if you know Eric von Daniken's work, Chariots of the Gods, how he mapped the ancient cultures and found similarities in different continents that were separated by oceans of thousands and thousands and thousands of miles. There's something there about that connection to those powers that we once had and connecting with other dimensions and universes. If we start to talk about quantum physics, they allow for that. They allow for the fabric of reality to be multidimensional. That's why we become increasingly drawn to quantum physics, because quantum physics is the glue between the metaphysical and the physical, because they don't behave the way they should. Okay, let's go in that direction. Sorry for the small writing there, but I'll walk you through it. The guy at the bottom is a guy by the name of Hugh Everett. In 1957, he wrote a paper that ended up being called the multi-world, the interpretation, the multiple world interpretation. He's talking about other places. He's talking about multiverse. And he published that, and everyone thought he was nuts because he was this up-and-coming 40-year-old fellow, and, you know, how could he write a paper on that that challenges the collapse of the wave function in quantum physics? He said that it doesn't actually collapse. We just see that in our reality, but it continues on into the other possibilities in other directions. Whilst he was in 1957, he really rocked the boat. He had some great supporters, But by the time he passed, and he passed early at 52, he was hailed a genius in a short space of time. Because he challenged reality as he saw it, and they started to understand because he confirmed through mathematics that other dimensions must exist. The guy at the top is a fellow by the name of Ed Witten. They've been looking for the theory of everything for a long time, as you know. And the theory of everything was thought to be string theory. But then they ended up with 5 different versions of string theory. So how could it be the theory of everything if it's got 5 different versions? But he added one more dimension, and he brought 11 dimensions into what he called M theory. And that was the overall concept of string theory that blended all 5 of them into one place. Now, he did that because some claimed that he was the only guy that could do it because he was the smartest one. But the maths checks out. Time is only one dimension. You know, we go back and forth, front and back, up and down. That's 3 dimensions. Time's a 4th one. There's another 7 that matches up in the mathematics that he put together. This is mind-boggling. The guy in the middle there is Werner Heisenberg, and he had the uncertainty principle, and he realised at the subatomic level that if you try and measure the mass of a subatomic particle, you can't get its velocity very well. If you can get its velocity, you can't get its mass because they're slippery, and sometimes they even disappear over here and they reappear over there. Where do they go? Do they go to some of these other dimensions that Witten and these other guys were talking about? I mean, ultimately, what's happening? So these 3 theories tell us that there are other dimensions. So what's happening there? We know when people cross, and we'll see that through near-death experiences, people cross into another dimension. But what else is out there? We know that through the electromagnetic spectrum is this big. We see this much. It's a very small part, the colour spectrum. Okay, and we can see that through our human senses. We can't pick up X-rays, ultraviolet, infrared, gamma, all of these other things that are part of that spectrum. We can only see a very small percentage of what's going on around us. This is science. Okay. But where does spiritual consciousness come in? We've talked about the work of the Michael Newton Institute already. Near-death experiences as they go down that tunnel and they come back and they are forever changed. They have an experience that is transcending their view of reality. That's why near-death experiences are so powerful. Again, Josie's going to talk about hers tomorrow. But there's something in this that is transcendent in how we look at things and we look at reality. Then there's mediumship. Okay? You only got to walk about 10 yards out here and you're going to run into a medium because they're everywhere throughout this whole event. There's lots of workshops and lots of presentations happening. But we can confirm that. And past lives. We know that reincarnation is something that we can research. If you want to do great research on reincarnation, apart from Brian Weiss's work and what Tony was talking about this morning, if you look at the Department of Perceptual Studies at University of Virginia, Ian Stevenson's work, now run by Jim Tucker, they went overseas and they recalled 3,000 kids' past life memories and proved them as cases. Case files there are phenomenal. Reincarnation is a scientifically provable fact. So you are just a chapter in a very long book. So if we put, as I said to Barry in our introduction, if we put quantum physics, which is the science of possibility, alongside, quantum and consciousness together, spiritual consciousness that opens up all these other dimensions, we get quantum consciousness. And that's what we do. We use the quantum field in an ocean of consciousness to find the pieces that individual clients need. Okay. We took 4 pieces when we founded this work back in 2013 or so. We took 4 pieces of quantum physics: the observer effect, and that was through the collapse of the wave function, etc. Non-locality, everything appears to be non-local. Entanglement, you move 2 particles, you give them a relationship, move them thousands of miles apart. One moves, the other one moves. Okay, so that connection is instantaneous across time and space. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. And the holographic universe, the large and the small, contain the same. Now, we're made of quantum field, but it behaves very differently to this large macro version of us. You are made of subatomic particles, held together by consciousness itself. That's a quote from Greg Braden. That's who you are. You are unique, and there's never been another version of you in the history of all of humanity. There's never been a soul choosing your incarnation, never the same collection of subatomic particles, but you are powered by an eternal consciousness. That's simply who we are. This is science. So we added consciousness to those 4 quantum principles. The observer effect became the creator effect. Okay? We can create the realities around us. Again, quantum physics tells us this. If there's non-locality, that means we can be everywhere. We can take our consciousness and transport it to different places, and we can find out what's going on in those other places. Entanglement, to go within, means that we can access other versions of ourselves in this and other bodies. And the holographic healing, if you can heal one past life over here and you extrapolate that across the lineage of your soul, you can clear whole patterns out of that soul lineage. So this was the power of what we started to put together. We built a model. That's a portrait of you, by the way. That's you and your waves and your particles. You are powered by light. You are 70% water. You're not a physical body. You're all of this other really cool stuff. Now, the elements in your human body are the same as the elements they've found in space. You are literally walking stardust in human form. Okay? The sun is made of certain elements that are present here on Earth that you are part of. I mean, you are the universe in ecstatic motion, as Rumi said. Okay, so we built a model. We looked, first of all, as you can see on the right side there, the green one, present consciousness. That is your anchor point in time and space in the here and now. That's both our start point and our finish point for the journeys that we take people on. Stored consciousness is something that is stored in your timeline. It may be the events that have moved through your life. There may be the events still to come. Parallel consciousness is when you're in a different type of body. You might see it as past lives, but anyone will tell you in the quantum world that everything is happening at once. Okay? Everything is still unfolding. I've had clients say to me at the end of their life, in a Life Between Lives session, they've said to me, yeah, I'm going to incarnate in the 1200s next time. And I'm making notes and I'm thinking, what? How does that work? But if time is an illusion, then all of this is possible. In fact, we can go back and we can repair those lives, drop those people back into them, and they can make different decisions and create other timelines that spin off the original past life. I mean, how cool is this stuff? Interdimensional consciousness, that's when we find somebody that is in another body, another dimension, and they describe themselves in the most incredible way. I've got a little piece of research on that which I'll share in a moment, which might surprise you. And then the eternal consciousness, the fabric of your soul, the immortal essence that is in all of these places. There's a purity and a beauty towards that eternal immortal essence that selected you to be this body in these times. And it's incredibly powerful to know that your soul is there within you, gently guiding and supporting you in everything you do. No one's ever truly alone. You're multidimensional, you're a spiritual being, and you're here in human form for just a little while. Enjoy this chapter because you're part of a really cool book. Okay. Yeah, those stats are a little small, but we took 111 cases of interdimensional consciousness. I'm not into triple numbers or numerology, but that was just the numbers that came out. So we would take people out through these different realms, but want to investigate the consciousness of the interdimensional realm. When people are in a non-human form, where do they go? Well, the stats showed us, of those 111 cases, that there were 4 main ones that were bigger than all the others. Remember, this is just a sample of 111 sessions. And we chose this sample because these were people that were undertaking accreditation with us, so they're doing it all by the book. And they're going through the certification process so we could review their cases in great detail. But We had 24 different facilitators as part of this sample across 4 countries using that standard practice, and they all happened between 2015 and 2018. Okay, so this was an older sample, but it was really solid information. We found that 22.5% of people had contact with an off-world being. There's that cosmic flavour again that we continue to see. We're being pulled into the universe, being pulled out away from Earth and away from being stuck in these bodies into something that helps us to know that we are cosmic citizens, just hanging out here on Earth. But there's so much more to us than we know. 20% of the time, clients moved into a purely energetic state. They described themselves as a wave of consciousness in the universe, a purple energy on a planet that was completely jungle, where they would blend with nature. All of these were real examples that came through. The third one was the metaphoric message. I talked about metaphor and analogy being important in terms of our interpretation, so we get the message. Again, nearly 20% of those people were given a metaphor, like it was the ocean, the waves in the ocean, it was a babbling brook, it was the strength of a tree. They were given all of these images as a way to learn. Our role there is to help them unravel what that image means. What's the greater purpose behind this being shown? What is the message for Jill or Fred or John? Okay. And we get that answer from that expanded state. And we had, like 17% of the time, we had people actually describe to us what it's like to be in a different type of life form somewhere else. We had somebody tell us about, I'm a being, I'm on the bottom of an ocean, and I'm enormous. I'm miles and miles and miles wide. Okay. What's the greater purpose of this being shown? I have to learn stillness. This being was very heavy, right at the bottom of the ocean. And okay, feel that energy of stillness and bring it into your life, and how will life be forever changed? These are some of the questions that we ask. So those top 4, that was about 80% of the sample that we took. Summary of the findings. Okay, I'll read that to you because it's a little small. The landscape of the universe beyond our physical existence here embraces energy and light and is within our reach. So many of our clients discussed energy and light as themes in their sessions. So I'm happy to say that on the back of this research and lots of other stuff we do, there is life on other planets. And sometimes it's us, having chosen an incarnation in that form. We can contact off-world civilizations. We saw that as part of this research, and we've been exploring it more since. We don't need physical contact. We don't need to build spaceships. We can contact other races, and a lot of people are doing this. It's not just channeling, but very structured processes to contact galactic civilizations and ask them for advice and support, and talk to them about the shift of consciousness here and what's happening. And we see this whole absence, this breakdown of time and space. Time is an illusion. I mean, even Einstein said the only reason we have the present is to stop the past colliding with the future. But you know that time loops. Time gets fast and time gets slow. Go to the in-laws for dinner, that's slow. Okay, what's your favourite television program? That's fast. I mean, that's what happens. We know from the work that I did as a hypnotherapist, which I can't call myself so much anymore, but we would take somebody to a trauma at 5 years old and we would heal it, but they would talk to us like they were still 5. I mean, this is the incredible stuff that is about human consciousness once we start to explore. The second big thing that we had was that we're often experienced we can understand and integrate. It's like the universe wants to speak our language. They want us to be able to interpret it. And of course, we are that universe. We want to understand the shift in consciousness, so we are given ways in which we can interpret this for ourselves. So metaphor and analogy, there's that language again. Okay? But there was always a relationship between the client's needs and what came forward in the sessions. It was like the intention that we create. This is our creator effect. The intention that we create to shift something manifested. We brought it into being by creating our own reality of a healed state. Okay. All right, let's keep going. That research is a bit old. More recently, we've taken the quantum consciousness work further into universal consciousness. A number of our guys are here today. But if we look at the different types of journeys that we do, vibrational echoes, you know the power of a near-death experience. You move out of your body and you go back into your body forever changed. No longer sweat the small stuff, as they say. Vibrational echoes is where we expand the consciousness outside the body to look at a physical or an emotional issue from outside. What's the greater purpose behind it? Why was it created? How does it serve? And we transcend people into a space where they see the anxiety, the depression, the grief, they see it very differently. Works for physical stuff too. I had a client a few weeks ago and he had an ankle that had been sore for 15 years. Hadn't been able to do anything. He was carrying all these emotions in his ankle. So we cleared his ankle of those emotions, and he wrote to me, I got the email just the other day, I was sharing it with a couple of our guys. He's gone to his physical therapist and they're trying to find out what he did because his hips are now realigned. Because he's been limping for 15 years, and now that he no longer limps, his hips have come back into alignment. And his physical therapist, like an American equivalent of a physio, I guess, what they've done is they're trying to find out more. They've worked with war veterans and all that sort of stuff and haven't seen anything like it. So that was a cool email to get. Some of the other stuff we're doing, that's vibrational echoes. Cosmic home, these are the people who have incarnated here and don't feel at home because they carry some of these cosmic aspects in the lineage of their soul. We take them home. We build a portal and we take them home and make them a bridge between worlds. Those people are incredibly powerful when it comes to shifting consciousness here in human form. Empaths, we help them transcend. People pick up energies really easily, and where does my energy field end, and where does the other one start, and what do I pick up from other people? The empaths themselves, we take them back pre-birth, and we offer them a new infrastructure that they can implement, so that we then rerun their life through those. Tomorrow, in my presentation down in on stage 2, I'm going to talk specifically about the cosmic home and the empaths and tell you how we're working with those people in some detail. Water consciousness. Water's really cool. Except where I live up north in the tropics, it's always warm. But water is this incredible resource, and I'm going to talk more about it in a moment. But the journeys that we've been doing, if you're familiar again with David Hawkins' map of consciousness, we've been taking people in to tune into the water in their body, because we're 70% water. So you tune into that water, and we offer it 3 frequencies of love, gratitude, and grace. There's that gratitude word come up this morning with Josie. Gratitude is a really, really powerful vibration. It lifts you out of anything. So we've been instilling those frequencies in the water in a person's body and watching the changes. We'll do this sometimes on the back of something else that we've done. But if you flush a high vibrational water through a problem part in the body, even a tumour has a water content. What would happen if you raise the vibration of the water within the tumour? This is some of the experimental work that we're now doing. Ancient wisdoms, we're taking people across, this is like a remote viewing outside of time and space. We're going back to ancient civilizations to retrieve the vibrational frequencies that have been lost in humanity's history. We're exploring those civilizations, how they did healing, how they did other work. That's more of a research model that we're doing. And ultimate consciousness, a few of my people say that's their favourite. We're working with the multiverse. If you want to be something in the future, then as you go through these shifts in reality, every time you make a decision, you go in different directions. If you move into the future and you start to talk about your desired state of being, and it's outside time and space, we're bringing forward you from the future that has all of those characteristics. Meet them, discuss with them, blend with them, carry those vibrational frequencies forward, collapse lower vibrational timelines into one self-fulfilling prophecy. That's some of the stuff we're doing that's really cool. We're just using quantum physics.
Quantum physicists say, oh, we haven't been able to find those other dimensions. Well, that wasn't good enough for us, because once you add consciousness to quantum physics, you can just go there. So we've been exploring the multiverse in that way. Okay. The future of consciousness work. Excuse me a sec. I mentioned water consciousness in passing before. You probably saw Dr. Emoto's work with the water crystals a long time ago. Fascinating book, The Hidden Messages in Water. He spoke to a scientist who he believes that water is of extraterrestrial origin. Now, how could that be? There's a theory that these big ice meteors landed on this planet and gradually manifested into oceans. That's one of the theories out of science. But there's a guy in my own network who's a PhD, he's a geologist. He worked for a big mining company, but he knows a lot about the Earth and how it formed, because that's been his field of expertise. I said, what do you think about water? He says, no, water's different. What do you mean it's different? He says, water is the only substance on our planet that behaves differently from every other one. I said, what do you mean? He says, ice floats. It's the only substance on this planet that in its solid form, it is less dense than its liquid form. And I thought about that. I thought, well, if water has consciousness, why does water float? What does ice float in water? It doesn't make sense. Unless ice chooses to float with its own creator effect. So you start this whole conversation about what's possible with water. There's a lady in New Zealand doing some fantastic work called Veda Austin. She's exploring on the back of Emoto's work, but she's taken her own path with that. She is so worth having a look at. She's doing some incredible work. Water is seen to have memory. In our own research of water, we're saying that water is not just a carrier of consciousness, it's an activator and amplifier of consciousness. And we're seeing clients tell us about an interplay between light and water at the same time. I've recently been going to the beach in the mornings and taking photos of the sunrise as it hits the water. Incredible vibrational frequencies coming off it. And you can try and catch them on an iPhone, but it just doesn't quite do it justice. When I go to the beach now, I wait for the sun to come up, and I see that line of light coming down across the ocean, and that's where I go in. Okay, because it's fabulous. Light and water. And you are all beings of light, and you're 70% water. That's why sunlight's really good for you. That's why people gravitate to the coast. I mean, who doesn't like to go to the beach? I mean, we're just being more of who we are. We have a light body and we're made 70% water. Play to our strengths. That's who we really are. So water is something quite remarkable. Consciousness therapies. We're seeing a big shift away from just cognitive behavioural therapy. People don't want to stay in therapy forever now. Psychoanalysis, I spoke to a client, he says, can you help me? I said, sure, what have you done so far? I did 7 years of psychoanalysis with a Jungian analyst. And I'm a real Carl Jung fan, and I don't think he really wanted that. But, I mean, people want something that's more rapid and can get to the source of things. Cognitive behavioural therapy means you have to work through the human intellect, even though there are other ways to try and find the hidden pieces. Carl Jung used a lot of art therapy. But there's something in this that is really significant, that there's a shift even in the psychological circles towards medicine, mindfulness, meditation as ways to access this. But if we start to work with the subconscious and the energy field and the quantum field, we have so much more potential to help people. Years ago I wrote an article for Nexus magazine and I talked about how trauma is carried in alpha brainwave patterns, but we do therapy in beta brainwave patterns. That's cognitive behavioural therapy, but we know that people unconsciously store trauma in their energy field. And I wrote an article to say, well, you need to use a healing remedy that goes down uses those same brainwave patterns, so you can match it up. I had emails from all around the world from people saying, yeah, we didn't get that. Yeah, so. Okay, so watch all the people out here vibration, frequency, sound healers, people using toning, people who are doing so much more than they used to. And some of this is some of the ancient things coming back. They'd heal with drums, they'd use out-of-body experiences, ayahuasca ceremonies. I mean, that has to be carefully managed, of course, but you know, there's something in this that is taking us into new fields of healing that we haven't had before. The third one's my favourite. Consciousness to become a more sanctified method of research. If we can take people out of their bodies across time and space, and we can start to understand the true history of the world. You know, we did some research in a recent workshop. We went back across time and space to Machu Picchu. What was really happening at Machu Picchu in the old days? And there was the Indians that came in there, the Andean Indians. They were there, but there was a group there before. And we saw different things happening from an off-world group. So that became part of our research as well. There is so much that has been hidden from us. Contact with cosmic family, it's all coming back. But we can actually go back and we can visit somewhere back in time and we can find out the truth of what was really happening, because history was written by the victors. Okay, so let's sidestep that and go back across time and space and find out what really happened. Okay, going to have a little bit of time for questions soon. Let me put some information up for you. Our website is instituteforquantumconsciousness.com. There are lots of different resources. There are articles, there are YouTubes, all of that on there. I want to bring to your attention the Transcendence Adventure, which is a 9-stage program where people move through 9 different meditations that are only 10 to 12 minutes. Each has a key theme, and they lead you towards further and further expansion. It's all free. It was put out during the lockdowns, because when people were really struggling with their mental health. You can see there's a bit of a theme in the artwork there about consciousness art. The Transcendence Adventure has 9 paintings filmed in a rainforest, separately. So a lot of people have used that now for great things. Living Quantum Consciousness, it's a 1-day program we do with 3 journeys. Next one of those is in September. It's all online. We do 3 journeys about Remember Your Light, Water Consciousness, and the multiverse. So 3 of those different journeys that I was talking about earlier. 2028 was an initiative that we put together some years ago that started to encapsulate, this is the old creator effect, if the world was different in 2028, what would it look like? We had 5 categories where we had the billionaires had donated half of their wealth to repair the planet, and there were projects happening everywhere. There was the science had been replaced by meta-science. We had healing methods that transcended the old allopathic system but took the best of it into new ones. I mean, we just encapsulated all of that to, and there are papers to have discussions. So rather than a Tupperware party, we put these out there for free so people could have a 2028 party. And every time you have a conversation about the future consciousness of this planet and where it can take us, you change the fabric of reality and you point us in that direction. So that was the part of that. For existing practitioners, we have a quantum consciousness facilitator training. So we do those at this point for 5 days. We got one of those at the end of July, where we train existing practitioners to take some of these quantum principles and the experiences we use. We take them back into their practices. One of the really exciting things for us, though, is we've just been featured in the 2nd series of Journeys into the Soul, which is on Gaia TV for the 1st series. The 2nd series is about 12 episodes about Dolores Cannon's work and 8 episodes about our quantum consciousness work. So that's already out there on journeysintothesoul.com, where you can see a number of our practitioners. We've got a few here in the audience today who actually have those episodes and have worked with clients and tell their stories. The really cool thing that's coming is a documentary on the work that we do at Institute for Quantum Consciousness. That's going to be out more towards the end of the year. That's me. Those are the 2 books that I wrote. Quantum Consciousness was written and published in that version in 2018. That has case studies out of the quantum realm, similar to the research I shared earlier. The Transcendence of Celeste Kelly was out last year. That's a book that it's a novel, and it traces and takes all of our work into novel form. So it's more of a narrative. But what it does is it talks about a quantum physicist who has her own challenges, and she discovers consciousness and she does her best to change the world. More about the Michael Newton Institute, newtoninstitute.org. We have people based all around the world, 40 countries. M&I Publishing is out there. Finding Purpose is the first book we've had. Stories of the Afterlife is our quarterly journal. It's about 20-something US dollars a year for 4 quarterly journals that tells about the latest things from that work. But the one you can't see, the little white one right in the middle there, is called Friends of M&I. That's going to be launched in a couple of months. We found Michael Newton some of his hidden files. We're going to give access to a lot of the leaders in our organisation. We're going to run events and have conversations in there in its own chat platform. It's a separate website where people can come together and discuss aspects of the work and have conversations with like-minded souls. Because from what we're told, that doesn't happen very often. Okay. I've left 14 minutes for questions. That went well. Questions, anything you'd like to know? Someone's got a hand up there, up the back. Not really. Well, clearly I could hear say that, but... Okay, another question over here after that one.
Hello. Okay.
Hi, who am I speaking with?
My name's Ryan.
Hi, Ryan.
So I'm studying my diploma of nursing to become an EN.
Yep.
Originally, I was planning to go all through the Western medicine field to nurse practitioner,
Yes.
and then go and study this kind of stuff, do my PhD on this consciousness stuff, metaphysics and all that, and
Cool.
then come back and be like, yeah, I've got that credibility, I'm an NP. So I have that label and people would give me that credibility. Is there a better path? Because I don't really want to study Western medicine. I just want the credibility in the label so that people can actually relate to me and be in Western society.
Okay. Ryan, that's a complicated question. I would love you to write me an email, get one of my cards off the speaker's table and write me an email next week, and I'll guide you the best way I can.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
This one over here.
Thank you so much for sharing. It has been so inspiring and
Thank you.
exactly what I needed to hear personally.
What's your name, can I ask?
My name is Danny.
Hi, Danny.
There's so many points that were so interesting, but my main question right now is, are you seeing clients, taking on clients if, say, myself has something that they would like to work through or understand better?
Yep, I've got a whole network of people, but I do take one-on-one still.
Okay, and I just grab a card at the end?
Yep, yeah, there's cards out on the table.
Thank you.
There's Rosh, can you stand up for a sec? Rosh is one of our teachers from Melbourne. He's here as well in support. So if you can't get to me for a conversation or asking any of his questions, Rosh is there. We've got a few of our universal consciousness facilitators in the audience here as well. So we love having those conversations.
Thank you, Pete, from me too. My name's Tanya.
Hi, Tanya.
My question is, for people who are really resonating with what you've spoken about, especially in the first half, and have experiences along those lines and are seeing those sorts of things and where the world may be going to and how we can help it, is there a community in Australia? I'm lost and can't find anyone to talk to. I have no friends. Is there a community in Australia for where people can get together and really talk and start to help to lift those frequencies and push the world to a better place?
I get that question a lot, Tanya. And I love how you're normal. People said to me, because we're all metaphysical, someone came in the clinic one day and they said, I just want to know that I'm normal. Well, I said, I'm sorry, but you're paranormal. And that's your state of being and you're just going to have to get used to it. That's one of the reasons we're building the Friends of M&I website for people who've had like an LBL or who want to join that type of community and want to have those conversations. Facebook's quite a weird energy these days. most social medias have been permeated with advertising and that sort of stuff. There's some really cool sort of off mainstream platforms that you can join, but anyone can sort of dump anything there. So that's one of the reasons we're building the Friends of M&I. But I think you're in pretty good company in this auditorium at the moment, and also around a lot of the alternative health people that are out there as well. Ask to be shown where they are. I don't recommend a particular Facebook group or social media so much, but if you send an invitation out to the universe to find some like-mindeds, they show up. But the only thing you have to do is have the courage to start those conversations, because you get really surprised how people react sometimes. If their eyes glaze over, just turn away and go to the next one. But yeah, it'll be easier to have those conversations going forward once we get more of this into mainstream. Okay. Other questions? There's a couple over here.
Hello, my name is Vivienne.
Hi, Vivienne.
Thanks for your talk. It was beautiful. So my question is more related to the soul journey. I've seen a kinesiologist once, and she was working with my energy, and she mentioned you have a misalignment in your soul, and you didn't want to be here. And that question like stuck in my head, and I was like, oh wow, okay. So is it like my soul has the choice to be here, or or like was forced to be here? And I was like, oh my God, what do I do now? And yeah, so just like really interesting, because I always thought that it was a choice to be here. But why did she say that I didn't want to be here?
That's her interpretation of you.
Okay.
Whenever somebody reads you, they will offer their, even the best person that offers a reading about you will be filtered in some way. Mm-hmm. Some people are filtered a little, some a lot, but they've got to express that through their own human form. Everybody in this auditorium is a courageous soul, because they've incarnated in one of the toughest places around, in one of the toughest times in its history. So all of you are courageous just by incarnating here. There's often a reluctance to step into that energy. Mm-hmm. And I might be, I'm not sure I want to go back. Do I really want to? Oh, yeah, I guess I will. They tell me it's going to be fun, but, maybe it will, maybe it won't, but at least I'll learn something. So she may have even picked up a little bit of that reluctance when she was feeling into your energy field. Doesn't mean you don't want to be here. I mean, you can reframe that a little bit. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's going to be a challenge, but I'm going to learn a lot. Okay. This is a tough school. Michael Newton's work talked a lot about that, about the difficulty of being here, mm-hmm. and particularly in these times. So, yeah, thank you for being here. Yeah. I'm glad you made the choice to come.
Thanks for having me.
Hi, Peter. Shirlene.
Hi, Shirlene, how are you?
Good. Can you talk a little more about beings that are maybe uncomfortable on Earth, and you build this bridge to where they are? What is that exactly?
Yeah. Look, you might know, I'm going to talk about this in detail tomorrow, but you might hear them referred to as starseeds, traveller souls, off-worlders, whatever it might be, because this is such a very different and difficult vibration. It can be a rough landing, let's say. And because you're not used to these difficult and heavy bodies, it may take some adjustment. In that group of society, we see there's a high tendency towards depression and difficulty with the human emotions. But once we've found, by taking them on the journey home and letting them have 1 foot there and 1 foot here, and to realise that they're a bridge between worlds, that does that, but also gives access to resources from the other side. So once you move out of this dimension into that one, life gets easier. Okay. Nice to see you, Charlene. 4 minutes. A couple more questions, if there are some. I can't see the hands very well. Oh, there's one.
Hello, Peter. It's Mikey here.
Hi, Mikey.
Just wondering if you can talk to quantum devices like bioresonance devices and things such as the Healy or similar products.
Yep.
And what's your view?
I probably can't. It's not my field. The only time I've experienced the Healy was as a client because I wanted to try it out. But I feel we're really moving towards things that are vibration and frequency. So the Healy device and others like it are, I think, the new wave of medicine that really needs to be explored. That's about all I know.
No worries, thank you.
Thanks, Mikey. Any more? Okay, I think we're good. Thank you so much for your attention. I felt your support the whole time I was speaking, and I'm very grateful. Thank you.
All right, everybody, please don't leave. Peter has finished early. He's not allowed to do that. You'll be kept in now, Peter. All right? Oh, sorry. I slipped on the stairs there. All right, not all right. Look, that was fascinating. We have our next speaker will be with us in just a few moments talking about near-death experiences. So do not go away, or if you go, come back in about 3 or 4 minutes, all right? It's a fascinating chat we're going to have. Near-death experiences from the man who has done a whole lot of work in this area, Dr. Michael Visser. So that's coming up in just a few minutes' time, all right? So, Pete, you happy about that? Quantum consciousness, everything,
absolutely.
All worked out well?
I love having these conversations, Barry. Absolutely.
Well, that's what somebody said before. They like the fact that we talk on radio and we do all sorts of things like that. So there we are. So, everybody, what about a nice big round of applause for Peter Smith?
Yeah, I've got a couple of books. I wrote a book called Quantum Consciousness, Journey Through Other Realms. That explores the different realms of consciousness that people can move into when they move out of body. I wrote a novel called The Transcendence of Celeste Kelly, which is fiction about a quantum physicist who discovers consciousness and wants to change the world. So a lot of these books are coming out in this day and age, and I think that the more we can explore spiritual type books, the more it can activate something within us.
And you're speaking here today?
Yeah, I'll be speaking this afternoon. There's a lot of people on this planet who are experiencing intense energies, overwhelm, and it's because they are not familiar with this human place. There's a lot of people incarnating on this planet at this time with diversity in the lineage of their soul that comes from more cosmic type energies. So we're going to talk about those people and how we can help them. We're also going to talk about empaths, those people that pick up the energy from others and carry it with them. We're going to share with them some tools and techniques how not to do so.
Okay, and what was the what brings you? What's the great thing about Awaken? What's the great thing about to you? What's the great thing about this event? Awaken.
What I love about Awaken is there's so many people that have these mindsets in one place. There's a whole auditorium full of people who've got the alternative view of life that offers so much to the people who come. I mean, I feel like I'm in a tribe here that's helping, like a family. We're helping other people to be able to remember more of who they are. And we're doing that from all different angles, but we all have a common purpose to help the rising consciousness.